Hello, and welcome back to the Trusted Postgres channel. In this series, we are discussing the Ansible-based Postgres deployment tool, Trusted Postgres Architect, also known as TPA. In the last episode of this series, we used TPA to deploy a fully operational Postgres 14 cluster, managed by repmgr for high availability and Barman for backups. In this episode, we will use TPA to add a new database to our cluster and modify the Barman configuration, all by simply making changes to our config.yml file and rerunning the deploy. First, let's open a terminal and run the docker ps command to make sure our 3 containers are still okay. Alright, looks like our backup 01 is there, replica 01 is there, and primary 01 is there. Now that we know they're up and running, let's open the TPA documentation by opening a browser and navigating to trustedpostgres.com. And from here, under the Trusted Postgres Architect section, click on the GitHub link. Scroll down, click on the docs folder, and in this folder, click on the src folder. Now we want to scroll down and look for the Postgres_databases markdown file. And in here, we're going to go ahead and just copy out this section and make some edits once we've pasted it into our config.yml. Underneath the cluster vars, we will paste this in, and at the top here, we'll get rid of this example DB database. We're not going to configure that. We'll just go with the complex DB example, and I will walk through what each of these variables are for. Going through each one of these variables, the name variable simply names our database to be created. We'll just leave it as complex DB. The owner variable describes the database owner. The example database user does not exist, so we'll remove it and it will default to the Postgres database user. We'll leave the encoding and collation the same. We will instruct TPA to use the template 0 database to create the database. We will allow it to create these extensions, the HStore and DB-link extensions, but we will remove the rest. So get rid of the languages section and the table space variable. Now we will write that and go back to our documentation. Next thing we want to look at is the barman.md file. We'll scroll down, look at the defaults for the variables that TPA allows us to override. In this case, we're going to override the default Barman last backup maximum age value of 1 week, and we'll set that to 3 days. Again, we want to put this under the cluster vars. Paste that in. Put a value of 3 days. Make sure we properly indent that. I'll check that, making sure it's lined up with Postgres_databases. You'll write the file and quit. And at this point, we're ready to run the deploy. Now that the deploy has completed, let's make sure our database has been added to our primary and our Barman configuration has been modified. First, let's cd into the cluster directory. Take a look at the contents again. When deploy runs for the first time for a Docker-based configuration, it will create a common SSH key pair and config for connecting to these containers. We will use this key pair and config to connect to these containers without using the Docker CLI. Now we want to switch the user to the Postgres user, and we will log in to the database server, and I'll use the meta command \l to list the databases on this server. And from here you can see that the complex DB database has been added. Now we want to check to make sure our HStore and DB link extensions were added to that database. So I'll connect to that database and I'll run the \dx meta command to list the extensions in this database. From here you'll see DB link has been added as well as HStore. So I'll exit out of the container now and log into the Barman node called backup01. From here we will switch the user to Barman and just run Barman check primary 01. From here you can see that the backup maximum age has been changed from the default of 1 week to 3 days. In the final episode of this series, we will add a PG Bouncer node to the TPA cluster to front-end our connections to the primary database server. To help grow the Trusted Postgres community here on YouTube, please like and subscribe for more content. Also, if you are interested in being one of our customers or contractors, please register at trustedpostgres.com and we will be in touch as soon as possible to schedule your first engagement. Until next time, have a productive and peaceful day.